Heyo, it's Thursday, May 28th, one day until your last quiz of the year. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to remember this is not a cumulative test that you've been doing from the beginning of the year to the end. We're not doing final cartas with distance learning. It's just going to cause way too much of a hassle, and quite frankly, we don't think it's fair to assess your growth of the entire year anyway, based off of everything that's happened. Okay, so all that we're doing is it's just a quiz on what we've done from the beginning of this unit with Industrial Revolution up until right now. As usual, we're going to go through the pepper review, right? Not meaning the sneeze review, meaning the review that I took from Mr. Gruch's old name for it. And we're just going to go through it really quick. Should really help you. And tomorrow's quiz, I believe, is 13 questions. Okay, so it's not going to be anything too crazy. But make sure that you study for it. Make sure that you prepare for it, because you do get a grade for it, right? And the last thing, and I'll remind you of this in the video tomorrow, remember that we're only doing this online, okay? Our weekly video that's preparing you for this week will remind you of that, but just in case you haven't seen it, I just want you to remember that. And mainly it's just because we really want to try to get your grades ready and prepared by the time that conferences roll around, right? So if you're having problems for whatever reason with getting it done online, please let me know. But otherwise, I'm going to expect that tomorrow when the quiz comes out that you do it on time online. All right, so let's get into the video. Notice my eyes a little bit puffy. I've kind of gone back on my allergies again. It looked like things were getting better and then started to get worse again. The nice thing though is that the weather's getting nice right now, so I think that is probably a side effect of it. All right, your warm up for today. Immigration did so much to provide America with the labor it needed to industrialize as fast as it did. It also brought about many new cultures, ideas, beliefs, traditions. What is an example of these cultures that have become popular in the United States today? I will give you a freebie on this one if you are paying attention to the video. One that I have noticed, it is a religious-centric thing, but I think a lot of people don't realize this. The Christmas tree is a great example. That is an old tradition that was used in many German areas, and that was brought over and it caught on. So a lot of people that celebrate Christmas in the United States, doesn't really matter what state they live in or even what denomination of Christianity they're in, the Christmas tree has become a very, very, very popular tradition of the United States. And I think that solely has to do with immigration. So there you go. There's one. Also, my favorite food, bratwurst, is another one, which if you ever had one, amazing. All right, I am going to open this. The pepper review is right here. This is what we're going to go off of. I'm going to open this in my own file. It's just easier for me to do it that way. All right, so you got a freebie there. What is a market economy? Okay. A market economy basically means prices are determined by competition among businesses and not by the government. Now, we see this when we go to a supermarket today, right? Walmart sells their goods for a certain price. Target sells theirs for a certain price. There's nobody that tells them what they need to price them at. But if they price them too high, people aren't going to buy them, right? So they're going to price them pretty much as low as they can in order to get people to want to buy their products. That's why you see so many sales all the time. All right, before being used power factories, attached wheels on trains, what were original steam engines used for? They're used to pump water out of the coal mines, right? The idea is that you wanted to get more coal for heat because it was becoming widely popular. So they used the coal that they mined, put it in the steam engine, and then the steam engine could automatically pump the water out way faster than humans could, and that allowed them to get more coal. It's kind of a cyclical or a circle pattern, right? You know, you want more coal, so you mine it, and you pump more water out and you get more coal. But eventually that's going to allow so much to be produced that they can start using it for other things. All right, what was the name of the railroad funded by the government to go from east to west in the US? It's a transcontinental railroad, right? It's the Union Pacific and the Central Pacific rails. They meet up in Utah, as we talked about. And that's what opens up expansion out into the west. Beforehand, people did it. You know, you have the Oregon Trail and then other trails that were made to go by covered wagon being pulled by animals that traveled 2 miles an hour. But obviously, it was an incredibly risky way to go out into the west, because if you made one mistake, you got lost, you lost supplies, you ran out of food, you would either die or you'd have to settle where you stopped, right? Transcontinental Railroad fixed that. What is made in a textile mill? Andrew Carnegie worked in one of these. A lot of women worked in these mills. These are clothing mills where you would take cotton or wool or other clothing products and make them into either cloth, or in the end, they could be made into finished clothing. What is industrialization? What does that word mean? The process of the Industrial Revolution. Simply put, it's the change of making goods by hand to being made by machines, right? And why do we want to do that? Because the machines are making things easier and so much faster that more can be produced. When there are more out there, people aren't going to pay as much for them because there's a greater supply. And in the end, it allows these goods to be purchased by more common people than they could have before, right? So that's the reason why industrialization was such a fast-growing phenomenon and why people liked it as a whole. Capital. First of all, that's a type of savings or money that's used in business. So what are the two sources of it? It is not iron and coal. I have had this answered many times in a quiz in the past. It's not iron and coal. It's personal savings and government funds. You also can get investors to give you money to use for your business, right? But people usually will have some sort of personal savings. They can get government funds to help them, or they can get private people to give some of their savings to invest it and to create jobs and to purchase things to grow the company. What is a piece of ownership in a company that anyone can buy provided they have the money? It's sold on the New York Blank Exchange in the United States. It's called a share of stock. So the New York Stock Exchange. A share is a piece of a company. If you think of a company as a whole pizza, each piece that they break it into is considered a share. So I would probably think that there are some companies like Apple and others that have billions of shares in their company. That means that their company is broken down into such small parts that when you buy a share, it's like 1 out of 8 billion pieces of that company. Well, then why do it? Because if you break it into small enough pieces to make it affordable for a lot of people, you're going to get a heck of a lot of investment, rather than saying, oh, would you like to pay for $2 billion for 25% of Apple? I don't know about you. I wish I did, but I don't have that money to pay. But do I have $40 to invest in a company to maybe take a gamble? Sure, but I still won't because I'm cheap. Although he started out as a bobbin boy making 2 cents an hour, what business did Andrew Carnegie make his fortune in? You could argue it's 2. Iron bridges first, and then he remade his production in the same places to start making the more durable, lighter, and higher quality steel beams for skyscraper buildings. Samuel Slater, the guy who started the Industrial Revolution in the United States. How did he get the spinning machine to America? Because the British were not allowing it to leave. He worked in a factory that had a spinning machine. He memorized what each individual part was, how it was made, and what use it had, and he recreated his own simply off of his memory. I would kill to have a memory like that. What is rail gauge and what problem did rail companies have with it early on? All right, it's the space between rails in a track, right? And it usually had to do with the size of the steam locomotive. Each company is going to pick its own gauge. Now, the smaller trains usually would have a narrower gauge. And as trains got bigger, they had to widen the gauge. Now, the problem is if you're going from a small rail to a big one, then back down to a small rail again, unfortunately, you're going to have to completely unload the train each time, reload it, and then start it. Eventually, somebody is going to come along and he is going to solve this gauge problem and make rail transportation much more efficient and fast. Inventors wanted and still want patents when they invented something. What does a patent do? Edison and Graham Bell were two people that really relied on these patents. It gives someone permission and sole permission to make things a certain way. If anybody copies their product design, they will either be sued, thrown in jail, or they will be arrested. And in a lot of cases, what ends up happening is that if somebody does get permission to use these products, they get what's called royalties in payment for somebody using their copyrighted material. We see this a lot in music today. How did Rockefeller use the money his company made to make it bigger and better? He reinvested it, right? He would make profits and he would instantly try to put it back into his company to make production cheaper, to make transportation more efficient, to find ways to get rebates with rail companies. Bottom line is he did everything to continue to make his production cheaper so he could charge less money, and eventually his business got big enough that he was just buying out every oil refining company in sight, right? It's a true testament that if you can do the best you can to continue to make production more efficient, your business is going to do better and better. He was not somebody who invented something. Oil refineries were around well before Rockefeller, but his business intelligence, along with the luck of having the rail companies start to find their way to his original refineries in Cleveland, really allowed him to take off. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I tried to go through this as quick as I can today because I know a lot of you probably are finishing up your last few things before the end of distance learning. Your exit ticket today, it'll be explained in the video, but you might also know from early readings who is the person who is credited with bringing the Industrial Revolution to America. Well, we definitely talked about it. Give you a hint, he brought a certain type of machine here. So if you need to, you can definitely scroll over, go back in the video a few minutes, and find the name of this person. All right, ladies and gentlemen, have yourself a good night. Study up. We'll see you for that quiz tomorrow.